As I said, who needs coffee when you have that to start your day? So my name is Jesse, and welcome to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. First and foremost, I just want to say a huge thank you to all the classrooms, whether you're joining us live in person with kids in the class, that's awesome, on YouTube in a staggered start. However you happen to be joining us, we are thrilled that you are taking part again as we have a whole new year of amazing sessions with scientists, explorers, conservationists, and more from around the globe. I think we've done 25 sessions already in September. We got 15 more to go. It's been a crazy month. I think 15 countries we're broadcasting from, so a really good time, and we really appreciate having you back. So today, right now, we've got classes joining us live from across Minnesota, from Ontario. Welcome into them. We'll do intros when we get to Q&A. A whole bunch more on YouTube and Facebook. If you are joining us on YouTube and Facebook, please tell me where you're joining from. I'd love to see your questions in the chat bar and find out where our audience is coming in from today. That would be awesome. And the reason we're all here is for our speaker. So we are joined live by the team behind Elephanatics. So this is a group that is dedicated to elephant conservation, sounding the alarm of some of the threats that they're facing and providing solutions that you guys can do at home to help conserve one of the most iconic and incredible species from around the world. So we're joined by a two-pronged speaker team today. So I'm going to bring in Melanie and Renee. Melanie, Renee, thank you so much for joining us today, and looking very forward to hearing this presentation.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for inviting us.
Fantastic. So if you're okay with it, Melanie, I'll bring up your presentation. I'll fill the screen with that. You two can chat over that and take us away.
Okay.
Awesome. Let's do it.
So hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you're joining us for our Elephanatics Ivory is for Elephants presentation today. So there's a real crisis right now that's facing our elephants. An elephant is killed approximately every 15 minutes. At this rate, in about 20 years, elephants could actually be extinct. But there is really good news, and that is that each of you that are joining us today, there's things that you can do to help change this. So we're going to take a little minute here and introduce ourselves. So if Renee, you want to start?
Sure, yeah. I'm Renee, and I'm a researcher at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver in Canada on the West Coast. And I became interested in elephants a long time ago when I moved to Africa, where I lived and worked for several years. And I ended up working for a project called Monitoring Illegal Killing of Elephants. And this gave me the opportunity to spend many months in the field all over Africa, counting elephants and looking at what was threatening them. I spent many hours observing them, and the nice thing about that is that you never get bored. There's always something going on with these guys. You see young ones playing, you see an elephant pushing another one in the water, babies drinking milk, and etc. and so on. So they're really fun animals to observe, and it would be a shame if they would go extinct.
And my name is Melanie Reddy, and I'm an educator. I've taught in both schools and then other places like nature centers. And I actually fell in love with elephants through a program on TV that maybe some of the teachers know called Wild Kingdom. And they would show the Africa wildlife, and I saw an elephant, and I fell in love, and I started to read and study about them, and then decided that one day I wanted to be able to see one in the wild. And then in 2008, I made a trip to Tanzania and was lucky enough to actually be able to see them being elephants in the wild. And that just made me want to learn more about them, but also make sure that there would be elephants in the future so that hopefully some of you will be able to see them in the wild as well. From Tanzania, I then took a trip to Kenya and spent time at the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust and got to spend time with the orphaned elephants that live there. And then most recently, I just came back from Thailand, where I spent time in a jungle sanctuary learning about Asian elephants. I didn't know as much about Asian elephants, so just returned from that and that experience. I'm also the one that happens to do the lesson plans that you'll find on the Elephanatics website. So we're going to kick it off here which is some kind of elephant fun facts, some of the cool things that make elephants so impressive. So the first thing is that family herds are led usually by the oldest and largest cow, which is what we call the female elephant. She's considered the matriarch. The elephants communicate in a whole variety of ways. This includes sounds. They use their trunk to actually touch each other. They can even sense vibrations that are transmitted through the ground. And much like humans, elephants have a wide range of emotions. They can show rage, joy, concern. They grieve, much like we do, and they can even show love. Elephants also have crazy memories. They can remember things for years and years and years. And that's really important because they're able to remember the survival information that the herd needs. The matriarch can lead them to water holes that they haven't been to a long time and can lead them on very long migration paths. They also have great memories for each other, being able to recognize each other after a long time. They love showers. Some of you might love showers, some of you may not, but elephants do, and it doesn't matter if that shower is made up of water, sand, or mud, they just love showers. Unlike humans, we tend to need a lot of sleep. I know I need about 8 hours to feel pretty good. Elephants in the wild only need about 2 hours of sleep, and they mainly do that at night. If they're in captivity, then they tend to sleep a little bit longer, maybe 5 to 7 hours, also usually at night. When bulls, the male elephants, are ready to mate, we call that must. During this time, those bull elephants can get a little aggressive because they're going to be fighting with the other bull elephants for the attention of the females. They have record-long pregnancies. For humans, women are pregnant for about 9 months, but that doubles for elephants. They have gestation period of 22 months. So it's a really long time that they're pregnant.
Yeah, well, one really neat thing about elephants is their intelligence. They are one of the very few species who can actually recognize themselves in a mirror like humans do. And they have amazing communication skills, as Mel said. They can communicate over very long distances, several kilometers or miles, using sound which is so low that we cannot hear it as humans. And that low sound, which we call infrasound, can travel far and easily through thick rainforests as well. So they can stay in touch with each other, and they even move together without even seeing each other, which is actually pretty amazing.
So there are 3 different species of elephants. There's 2 African species, the forest and the savanna, and sometimes you'll hear the savanna elephant referred to as the bush elephant. In Africa, the forest elephant lives in the deep forests of Central and West Africa, and they tend to be a bit smaller than the savanna elephant is. And like their name suggests, they live in the open savannas and the woodland. The Asian elephant is smaller than the African elephant and is usually easily distinguished by those small ears you can see in the picture there. For most of the presentation today, we're really focusing on the African elephants, and because those are the ones that are killed most often for their ivory. African elephants, both the male and female, have the ivory tusks. In Asian elephants, it's only the males that have the tusks. The savanna elephant there in the middle, they're the ones with the largest tusks of all the different elephant species.
Yes, Mel, and we always thought that there was only one species of elephant in Africa, although they do differ in appearance. But genetic analysis that was done quite recently has revealed that there are actually at least 2 species of African elephant. And look at those ears. The savanna elephant in the middle has an ear that looks like the map of Africa. The ear of the forest elephant is rounder.
Okay. So elephants are a keystone species. So what does that mean? Basically, it means that elephants play a very important role in maintaining the ecosystems in which they live. If elephants disappear from this ecosystem, it not only impacts the elephants, but all the other species that depend on an elephant-maintained ecosystem. If elephants were to disappear, this would cause chaos in the habitat and a loss of biodiversity. And biodiversity is the variety of life that can be found in a particular habitat or ecosystem. So having elephants as a keystone species, they're responsible for making sure that lots of other plants and animals can live there as well.
Yes, we also call elephants ecosystem engineers because they literally change their environments just like humans do. For example, in Central Africa, where there's a lot of thick forest, they maintain openings in the forest, which we call clearings, where they find minerals in the soil, and other species like antelopes, but also gorillas benefit from that because they like also the minerals, but also the vegetation that grows in these openings. They also make these really big highways in dense forests that animals can use to move around. When we were doing research in Central Africa, we were even traveling on foot on these highways, which we called elephant boulevards. It's much faster than cutting your way through the bushes using a machete. And in deserts, yes, they live in deserts. For example, in Namibia, they dig holes with their tusks in dry riverbeds to get to the water. Many other animals can drink from these water holes, animals like antelopes, for example. And without them, it would be much harder for these animals to find water and survive.
So elephants often have some really unique relationships with other animals. In the middle picture there, you'll see the birds with the yellow and red beaks. Those are oxpeckers, and they tend to live in and around elephants and land on elephants, where they'll eat the lice, ticks, and other insects and parasites that happen to be living on an elephant's skin and hair. What this does is it provides food for the bird, but also relieves the elephant of all the annoying pests that it has on its skin. If you look at the picture with the little white bird riding on the elephant's back, that's a cattle egret. And you often see cattle egrets around elephants. And what's good for the elephants is that these egrets will sound an alarm if there's predators approaching. And that gives elephants a chance to kind of bring their babies in and guard them from a possible attack. The picture to the right is an olive baboon, and the baboons drink from the water holes that the elephants dig. And these baboons will sit up sometimes high in the treetops, and then when they see danger, they'll make their calls, and that alerts the elephants, again, to danger that might be in the area. And then that bottom picture is a dung beetle, and he's got his little ball of dung there, and they rely on the elephant dung to make their homes.
Yeah, I find the dung beetles the cutest, to be honest. They're also very important because they bury the dung in the ground and thereby putting nutrients back into the soil to feed the plants that need them. And they even store carbon that way. So you can see by these, with these examples, how wonderfully nature is connected.
Now, these two slides up right now have a lot of information, but the two key things I want you to take away from this is that there's been a huge loss of habitat for elephants. Elephants used to be found all over Africa, and now they are only in select spots. The other thing to notice is how many elephants that we've lost. Between 2010 and 2015, we've lost over 100,000 African elephants alone.
Yes, it's true. The elephants used to be all over Africa, and there's only a few places where you can still find them. It's a really big reduction of their home. There were probably around, people think, about maybe 25 million elephants before in Africa. And as Mel said, there's only about maybe 400,000 left. Elephants were killed and their habitat was destroyed, and that was the main reason why elephant numbers were so much reduced in numbers, but we'll get to that in the next slide.
So why are elephants killed? There's really three main reasons, and one of them happens to be bushmeat. And bushmeat is what we call meat from wildlife species. So we're talking about things like elephants, water buffalo, baboons. It's wild animals that are hunted in order for humans to eat. This happened, the hunting for bushmeat, across Central Africa for many years. Elephants are also killed because of the human and elephant conflict. As Renee was mentioning before, on that map, only those green spots are where elephants are found now. And so that's putting humans and elephants very close together. And we see that with the Asian elephant as well. So when their habitat shrinks, humans and elephants come together, and humans can sometimes be killed by elephants that come into, say, a village and go through the crops, and say a villager was trying to chase them away. That sometimes the elephants will kill the humans, but the humans also protecting their crops and things like that may kill the elephant as well. But today, the biggest reason that elephants are killed is for their ivory. And in the picture there, you can see some of the many things that are made from ivory. Piano keys used to be made from ivory, and then carvings, jewelry, ornaments, and sometimes ivory is actually used in questionable medical treatments. Sometimes people have beliefs that the ivory has kind of special powers that it really doesn't have. So exactly what is ivory? If you take your finger and touch your teeth, ivory is that hard white material that's dentine and that makes up your teeth as well. So feeling your teeth kind of gives you a sense of what that ivory actually feels like. So sometimes you'll hear about an ivory ban, and that's a question a lot of people have because you still see lots of ivory. Ivory was actually banned worldwide in 1989, but that ban has been lifted in various countries and at various times for different reasons. And Renee's going to talk about that in just a second. But you can still find a lot of ivory being sold in Southeast Asia, in China, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam. And elephant ivory can find its way to the United States and Canada as well. It can come through the internet or when people travel and buy these things overseas and bring them back.
Yeah, well, since the ivory ban in 1989, there have been 2 times that ivory was sold from existing stockpiles of ivory, which is actually ivory that was collected before and stored in big warehouses. And the first time was to Japan in 1997. The second time was in 2008 to Japan and China, where the biggest market of ivory was. Although these sales, they were legal and they were well controlled, they also stimulated the sales of illegally obtained ivory through the killing of live elephants. And it's hard to distinguish between legal and illegal ivory, and illegal ivory can even enter the United States and Canada through shady channels. In fact, it was for sale on eBay for a long time. The illegal ivory trade is often in the hands of international criminals who also smuggle drugs and weapons and even people.
So there's a number of impacts from this poaching. The first one is actually the loss of the animals that are being poached. And that happens to be, in this case, our elephants. But there's also many times rangers, those people that spend their lives trying to protect the elephants, they can be killed in the line of duty. So many countries gain a lot of money from tourists coming to see these magnificent creatures in the wild. And if the elephants aren't there, then the tourists don't come bringing their money. And so that loss of income can affect whole countries as it's spread around to the people that live there. Besides elephants, there are other animals that are also poached for their meat, skins, and bones. And that, along with the ivory, can become part of the illegal wildlife trade that impacts ecosystems and biodiversity as well. If elephants go extinct, not only would these magnificent animals be lost to all of us, but there would be major changes in the ecosystems. There's many benefits to having elephants in an ecosystem, and we've already talked about many of them. But elephants also do things like dispersing tree seeds. They dig the water holes, they create footpaths. They basically make these ecosystems safe and healthy for all kinds of other plants and animals.
Yeah, and because elephants are keystone species, as you said, Melanie, their disappearance has an impact on the whole community where they live. For example, the forest may change because the big trees that elephant help to disperse may disappear as well. And even the climate could be affected because those big trees store a lot of carbon.
So African elephants aren't the only ones that are suffering. We've also seen a huge drop by at least 50% over the last 3 generations of Asian elephants. The largest threat to Asian elephants are habitat loss, overexploitation from the tourist industry, and then poaching as well.
Yeah, there's only 50,000 left, and there's much less habitat for them than in Africa. And so habitat destruction is indeed one of the main reasons why there are so few left. For example, if you compare that to Africa, let's take one of the biggest game reserves in Tanzania, which is the Selous Game Reserve. It is more than 50,000 square kilometers or 19,000 square miles, which is 1.5 times the size of Vancouver Island for the Canadians in this audience. That area can harbor probably at least 100,000 elephants, but poaching reduced that number to around 13,000.
So Elephanatics has a few main goals. Education is one of the most important. We do that through presentations like we're doing today, through the lesson plans on our website. And on our website, there's tons of videos, books, and other resources that are there. And we hope you'll visit the website to check some of those out. And we also do conservation. We support a variety of elephant conservation organizations around the world. And currently, we're working very hard with the Canadian government to end wildlife trade and markets. We also believe in action, so we want people to get involved, to educate themselves, sign the petitions that are out there, join the elephant marches that we do every year as well.
Yeah, and ivory trade is only one small part of a huge trade in wildlife that exists. And this is threatening the species, the ecosystems, but also humans, because some species can carry disease which can spill over to humans. And this is something that may have happened with even COVID-19, which is affecting all of us. So we really do need to do something about this trade.
So we do donate to organizations both in Africa and Asia, and these are 2 of them. The Mara Elephant Project that focuses on African elephants in the Masai Mara in Kenya, and then the Kulin Elephant Forest Organization that focuses on Asian elephants. Because of the recent pandemic, many elephants are actually faced with starvation in sanctuaries, and we're seeing an increase in poaching for their bushmeat and their ivory. So elephants are really having a difficult time. So we do as much as we could to help the organizations with their conservation efforts. So we do have a petition currently. It's reached over 608,000 people, but we're really aiming for 1 million. And we're asking the Canadian government to ban all domestic trade of elephant ivory and make the import and export of and re-export of all elephant ivory illegal. So if you haven't signed that petition yet, then we hope that you guys will go ahead and do that and share that information with your friends and family.
So yes, sign the petition. Even if you live in the US, we can use your help.
So what can you do? One of the biggest things is share with others the information that you've learned today and information about elephants that maybe you'll learn from our website and other websites. Get on social media. We have a couple of hashtags there that you can use. We hope you'll write letters, let people in control, your government, your prime minister, your president, let them know you care about these species and you want to help protect them. You can support different wildlife organizations. Again, the petition is there as well.
Yeah, and of course, don't buy ivory, but don't buy an elephant as a pet, or actually don't get any other exotic pet that was caught in the wild, because that fuels the trade in wildlife. Avoid also buying products with palm oil that comes from a palm plantation where the forest that elephants used to live in was cut for. You can buy palm oil from a source that is sustainable, and that one has usually a label on it, a certification label, which is called the RSPO label, which you see on the slide.
So we've only had a few minutes to talk to you today, and we're going to be wrapping up here so we can get to some questions and a quick little video, but there's lots more information on our website at elephanatics.org. You can also check out the brief history of the ivory trade. There's some videos and additional information, and also learn more about the impacts of wildlife trade on ecosystems and biodiversity. So there's lots of great resources out there so you can continue your education and learn additional ways that you can help elephants out. And so now we're going to go to our video.
Let's do it. See, my problem would be that I'd so want to join the elephants, but you shouldn't do that. If you ever see a bunch of elephants frolicking like that, do stay away. But it's beautiful to see. And thank you guys so much for an awesome presentation. That was great, guys. Feedback all over the place on YouTube about how much people learned about elephants. We've got people tuning in from California, Arizona, Ontario, and more. So thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in. And please share your questions in the chat bar. We'd love to see your thoughts. What we'll do now is go to a live class, a Miss Short's class. You know what? I'm going to announce Miss Short's class, bring you guys in for a second. I know your mic isn't working, but I'll say hi to Miss Short's class, Learning Ontario Grade 8. Welcome in, everyone. We'd love to see your questions in the chat bar, so please do share them. But what I'll do to start is go to Miss Burge's class, joining us online in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. So Miss Burge, if you have a question for us to kick us off, go for it.
Yeah, so one of my students, John B, is wondering if there are other sources of ivory or if elephants are the only places that we can get ivory from.
Renee, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. There are other sources of ivory indeed. One is the extinct mammoth, which is, looks a bit like a huge elephant, and it's gone extinct hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. And there's still these mammoths that have been buried in ice in Siberia, in Russia, that they have been digging up because they have these really big tusks, and they've been using actually mammoth tusks for their ivory. And another source, you can also find ivory, for example, in narwhal in northern Canada. And even like hippopotamus teeth have been used as ivory, and that was another reason or another cause for a big decline in hippos in Central Africa when they were actually killed for their teeth, and that was used as ivory.
Great question, guys, to kick us off. I'm going to take the question from Ms. Short's class. They just typed it in. If poachers just want the ivory, can't they avoid killing the elephants and just take off the tusks? Is that something that people do? And I think there's a cool segue we can do on this question, but I'll leave it to you guys to start us off.
Yeah, it's fine. Renee and I were just talking about this the other day. A third of the tusks of elephants is actually inside of their head. And so if a poacher wants to go and get the tusk, they want to get all of that ivory. So in order to do that, they will kill the elephant. Plus, if you imagine the size of an elephant and try to figure out how you're going to get that ivory off of an elephant that's not going to want to give it up, that's another reason why the elephant is killed.
one of the things that I would highlight to our students too for rhinos and elephants, and this is happening in a few places in Africa, is conservationists going and sedating the animals and taking off the horns or taking off the tusks, which has its own complications associated with it, but is a really interesting, if alarming, solution or attempted solution to this problem. So cool question, guys. Let me take a question from Miss Oak's class, also joining us at Eden Prairie. So Miss Oakes, come on into the broadcast and take us away.
Right. Yeah, we have a question about why don't poachers just take tusks from animals that have already died?
Yeah, I think the answer is quite straightforward. There's just the demand is much higher than the number of animals that die naturally. So as long as there's a high demand and people pay a lot of money for ivory tusks, they're gonna it's worth for the poachers and the traders to go after not just trying to find dead elephants, but also go after live elephants, even when they're very difficult to find, or when it's a very risky operation.
Great questions, guys, to kick us off. I love this question from Mr. Hancock, and it's great because I can highlight a video that people can watch when they're done the presentation. So Mr. Hancock in Georgetown, Ontario, he wanted to know, are there any predators of elephants?
Did you say predators of elephants?
It's eating them.
Yeah. Well, the biggest predator or the main predator of elephants is humans. Yeah. Other animals are not killing any elephants. It could happen that, the babies could be, or they could try to kill a baby, but they're very well protected by their mothers and by the whole group, actually. And often with the babies, when the elephants feel threatened, the young ones are in the middle of the group and they make a circle. And with the bigger ones surrounding the small ones and protecting them. So it's really humans that are the main predator.
Yes, and I'm really glad we got that point, but I do want to highlight, and I'm going to put this in the chat bar, on planet Earth, which I guess is many years old, too many years old, and I feel very old just saying that, but there is one specialist team of lions that hunt elephants, an adult elephant, not full-grown bull, but there's footage of that, and it's one of the epic things ever captured in natural history, so I do want to
happen.
Yeah.
Cool question, guys. All right, Melanie, I forgot to mention, you can exit your screen share if you'd like. So make sure you can see us, you can kill your screen share, and then you'll be back on with us. Perfect. Andrea joining us in San Diego, one of the best cities in the world. She wants to know, could you discuss how tourism in the form of safaris can help with elephant conservation?
Melanie, you want to? Yep, sure. I can, I think tourism is an important tool to conserve elephants. I mean, people love elephants. People pay a lot of money actually to go on safari to see them, and that brings in a lot of money for the parks, for the government, and even for the local people. So yes, definitely. And another thing is that when you have tourists in a park, they go to the poachers will be deterred by them. They're not going to go too close to the tourists because they can be detected. So it's definitely a good thing. I mean, tourism has its problems as well, but in general, I think it really helps protect those animals. And that's what you see now with COVID. There are very few or even no tourists in many of Africa's national parks, and in some of them, the poaching is actually going up because of that.
I will add, when it comes to Asian elephants, that it's really important because there's very different issues sometimes facing the Asian elephants, and tourism that occurs with Asian elephants can happen in a lot of negative ways. And so it's really important when we talk about Asian elephants and tourism that you're practicing what we call ethical elephant tourism, which means you're observing the elephants, you're not participating in riding elephants or zoo shows or things like that with the elephants. So Asian elephants, it's really important. It's ethical tourism.
And that's really, really important. I'm glad we brought that up. So we featured many countries on this broadcast that are doing really sustainable, fantastic tourism models for ecotourism. Rwanda is a great example with their mountain gorillas. The population's almost doubled in the last 30 years, partially or hugely as a result of that tourism. Costa Rica, Galapagos, really well-managed places that have huge government support. Southeast Asia is a particularly bad area for this, and this is something that we cover a lot in our broadcasts. Is if you have an opportunity to have a monkey on your head or to ride an elephant or to do any of these things, don't do them. This does support things that are negative for individual animals and for the animals in the whole. So one thing you can look for in Canada and the US especially is something called AZA certification. So if you go to a zoo or a wildlife park, that certification means that that institution is held to the absolute highest standards of animal care. There's never going to be anything like that. So AZA or CAZA, if you're in Canada or the States, great organizations that help highlight, excellent models of animal care. So thank you guys so much for that. Miss Short's class, you guys have so many. I'm going to take one from you guys and go back to Miss Burge in a second. So Miss Short's class, you know what, we'll do some rapid fire questions. Do ivory tusks get bigger with age as elephants get older?
Yes, they continue to grow as the elephant matures.
Yeah. And then, let's see. Oh, for both of you, at what age did you know you wanted to work with animals or work around animals in some capacity?
Oh, for me, I was very young. My father's a naturalist, so he ran nature centers. So I kind of grew up with all kinds of animals around me. So I kind of think since birth, I've been interested in animals.
Probably the same for me. I was very young and I spent a lot of time at my grandfather's house, which was close to a nature reserve. And I was always out and about and looking at birds and rabbits and other, not elephants. There were no elephants there, but yeah, that's where I got my love, I guess, for nature and wildlife. Yeah. So must have been a few years old.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, we bring in so many people that have such passion for wildlife, passion for conservation. And I mean, this really does start at, a very young age, if not birth for most people. The benefits of wildlife is that it's everywhere. If any of you have ever had a chance to see an elephant in the wild, any of our students today, lucky you, I have too. It's an incredible experience, one of the best things I've ever done. But really, wherever you're joining from, there's cool wildlife right in your backyard, right outside, local parks. Start exploring that, and hopefully you get a chance to see really majestic, incredible animals in Africa or Asia at some point. So very cool, guys. Thanks for the question, Ms. Short's class. Let's go to Ms. Burge's group. If you have a question for us, come on up.
So one of my students, Noah, was curious about, are there any organizations like police organizations or maybe different law enforcement that will purchase the animals from poachers just to save them or release them again? Or is there not anything like that?
Yeah, I think purchasing animals is generally not a good idea because it stimulates the trade. Because when we've seen that, I used to work in Burundi as well, and I was there working with Jane Goodall Institute at some point, and people there were purchasing, for example, chimpanzees from smugglers, and they came from Congo. And the problem was because people feel pity with these animals and they want to save them, which, I understand, and which is a good thing. But on the other hand, as long as people keep buying these animals, the poachers will go after more animals because they can make money of it. So, and the same is true for elephants. So no, they don't purchase elephants or tusks But there are big international organizations like Interpol and police organizations that are, what they do is they try to track down the dealers, the big dealers, and try to intercept shipments and then arrest people and prosecute them.
Great question, guys. Let's go back to Ms. Oak's class. If you guys have a question for us, come on up.
I think you already answered. I had written a question about, is there a way to proactively remove the tusks by people who are in conservation so that poachers don't have tusks to get? Yeah.
And we covered that to an extent. Melanie had mentioned that some of the tusks are inside the elephant, so there would still be a motivation to try and kill that animal, unfortunately. And it's a solution that is being enacted, but it's not something that is a solution for every elephant. It's a pretty radical procedure, and it's something that does affect elephants' life cycles, with their tusks being part of how they move and navigate through the landscape and through their relationship with one another. But it's a really good question, guys. So if you have any others, let me know in the chat bar. I'd love to see that. And thanks, Ms. Oaks. That's awesome. We're almost at the end of the broadcast. See how fast it flies by. I told you, Melanie Renee. Let's see some other quick questions. Oh, so on YouTube and from Ms. Short's class, how old can elephants get? Softball question.
Depending on the species, African elephants can generally live between 60 and 70 years. In captivity, if they're treated well, they can live a little bit longer. For Asian elephants, it's just roughly around 50 years.
Fantastic, guys. And then YouTube, Mr. Hancock's class, Ms. Short's class, again, Ontario's killing it with these questions. They want to know why ivory? Like, why is this so important? Is this something that, denotes that you're a wealthy person? Is it, extremely valuable inherently? Why the market for this thing to begin with?
That's a tough one. Yeah. Go ahead, Renee.
Yeah, no, it is a luxury item. I mean, it's not cheap. It's expensive. It's indeed, it is a sign of wealth. It is also something that people use to as a gift to other people, and it's being used, for example, a lot in countries like China and some other Asian countries in business deals. When businessmen they make a deal, they as a token of appreciation, or and their satisfaction with the deal, they can give a gift in ivory to other people, and often without really knowing what harm it really does. So a big part of it was that's been going on in China is education, actually, about where ivory really comes from and what damage it does.
Fantastic, guys. One thing I want to share too, and I'll put this in the resource package to all the students who registered at the end. We did a fantastic talk with the Anthropocene Project. So this is something that's been really big in Canada over the last few years, had some major museum galleries and books. They were one of in fact, I think the only group that had permission to film huge ivory burning in East Africa. Was one of the, actually, could you mention ivory burning as a topic or something that we could bring up for students who might not know what that's all about?
Yeah, it's a little controversial. It's a little complex to get into, but very quickly, it's one of the ways that some countries decide to get rid of their stockpiles. Is to that's one of the ways they use to destroy their stockpile, with the idea that that's better for the trade than putting it flooding the market.
Yeah, I agree. There is a bit of a rift between countries. Some countries say all ivory should be banned, and so we burn the stockpiles that we have, like Kenya did. Other countries, mostly in Southern Africa, they say, well, ivory brings in a lot of money, so why would we burn? Why would we get rid of the stockpiles? If we can sell them, we get the money, and with that money, we can spend on conservation. But we can have a whole hour talking about
it. Yeah.
Well, that's great, and I'm really glad you guys brought it up, and I'll share that with classes, and they can navigate some of that themselves. And yeah, that's fantastic, guys. Well, we're ending the broadcast in a minute. So what I want to do for everyone at home is bring up again the change.org/ivoryfreecanada. You can check that out there. You can sign the petition. You can take part and learn more about all the stuff that's going on. It's really fantastic resources there. So check that out. And then Elephanatics.org, more information about the organization that's bringing you the broadcast today. So we really hope you check that out and keep the learning going. And finally, and I've been sending a lot of emails to our groups that are participating in this so far. If you aren't involved in Backyard Bio, this is our September campaign, and I'd love to have your class join us, share images of the wildlife that's near them, Twitter iNaturalist with other classrooms. We'd love to connect, see what you guys can find, and if there are any classes in East Africa or Southeast Asia that want to share elephant photos, we'd love that too. That'd be super cool. But Melanie and Renee, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share this.
Fantastic. Well, I'll bring in Miss Birds, I'll bring in Miss Oaks and Miss Short's class. If you guys want to join me in saying a big goodbye, there you all are. Thank you so much. We'll see you later, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, guys.